Welcome back. Thank you for staying with Checkpoint. Let's take a look at this story concerning a trailblazer. President William Ruto is among those who have mourned and celebrated the life of Kenyan scholar, teacher and activist, Professor Mucere Mugo. Ruto said on Saturday that the late poet had many wonderful achievements that were inspirational. Here at KTN News, we had the pleasure to have an exclusive sit-down interview with the professor some 7 years ago on the show Living Legends. He is part of that interview that was conducted by our then managing editor, Joa Gale.
When activism was deemed treason, but one woman dared speak out. Her name is Professor Mucere Mugo. She is a successful playwright, author of 15 books, and a poet. Mucere Mugo was born in 1942 in Baricho, Kirinyaga County, Kenya. She attended Alliance Girls High School and was among the first black students to be allowed to enroll in what had previously been a segregated academy. She later attended Mucere University, where she attained her BA in 1966. In 1973, she attained her master's degree at the University of New Brunswick and her PhD at the University of Toronto in 1978. She took up a teaching position at the University of Nairobi in 1973 and became Dean of the Faculty of Arts, making her the first female faculty dean in Kenya. After the attempted coup against the Daniel Arap Moi government in 1982, she was stripped of her Kenyan citizenship. She lived and taught in Zimbabwe and later in the United States. After 33 years in exile, she came back home and Living Legends had an opportunity to speak to her. Let's listen in.
People have described you as many things, as a critic, as an activist, as a poet, playwright, all of these things. What do you see yourself as in that respect?
You know, you summed it up. I embrace all those identities because all of us as individuals have many identities. Or many gifts and talents, as well as faults that we bring into the world and so on. But the media and the areas and the spaces you have mentioned are the ones that I have worked in most. I love teaching. My conscience is extremely sharp, and knowing the history of colonialism and before that slavery and what we are having under new colonialism, I cannot afford but be an activist because I would be silencing my conscience and the way I feel. And the way I feel is that until we are all collectively working together to build our nations, unless we are collectively benefits from the matunda ya uhuru, fruits of independence, we have not achieved enough. And if we forget that dream and that vision of collective development rather than islands of haves and have-nots and destitution and affluence, and so we will not move fast.
That's a theme that runs across many of your works, but also even when you give your lectures, this notion that your story, for instance, is intertwined with many other stories. This sense of the collective is really alive in a lot of what you write and say. Where does this come from?
I really believe in it. I'm not saying this just for the sake of it, but I know for certain I wouldn't be where I am if it hadn't been for support, solidarity, collective work, and so forth, and opportunities, that have been created collectively for me to be able to enter those spaces, whether at the family level or community level or larger than that, at the national level, because that Limuru thing was created by those who were fighting for independence and open spaces, and, I happened to go there. By the way, including the late Tom Mboya, who was also, I was also very privileged.
Yeah, you said it was an inspiration in your life.
Absolutely. So that understanding that one person cannot do it alone, that understanding that we would never have achieved it if others had not, helped, that humility to understand there were even some actually in primary schools and intermediate schools who were brighter than me. But they didn't make it, either because they didn't have the fees to continue or something else happened and so on. Really, we have to see beyond ourselves. Otherwise, that narcissism that we are developing, individualism and egotism that we have, it cannot benefit us. So why do I do it? I really feel it. I believe in it. I'm not just saying it as words. I have experienced it. I am a witness, and I know that this vision is very, very important if we are to move forward.
So that gets you involved in controversial debates. The other day you were talking about gays, for example. That's a conversation that's going on in Kenya right now, and you seem to have strong views about it. You say that this should be seen through the prism of human rights. That's a controversial position right now. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yes, it is very, very controversial, and I don't mean to create controversy. I know it touches on religious beliefs. I know it touches on cultural beliefs. I know, it touches on so many sensitive areas. But what I am saying to us as Kenyans is this. When I see these people, I am seeing human beings. I don't know what activity any individual in Kenya engages in or how they do it. I really don't know. But I know when I look at a person, I'm seeing a human being created by God, or created in whatever religious belief one is founded in, is a piece of creation, which is a part of me. I see somebody with a human soul, somebody with a mind, this and that and the other. I may not understand them, but what we are saying is, let us bring all these conversations to the table. Those we don't understand, those we don't agree with, those we would never ever participate in, and so, but that is the only way we can hold dialogue and hear one another. So all I'm saying is, these are human beings. They are part of the Kenyan community. You isolate them, and if we isolate them, and if we demonize them and so on, we are demonizing ourselves. The most we can do is have dialogue with them, have them at the table, recognize their struggles we have never been through, that we don't understand, as struggles the same as we have been through before. So me, as a freedom fighter, and I see myself as continuing in the struggles until I pass on to the other side. And I'm sure when I go to the hereafter, I will continue with the struggles that are there. But we need to come to the table with them with understanding, with love. These are our brothers. They are our sons and daughters. They are our daughters and grandchildren and so on. We can't even listen. Let us take the Christian belief and Jesus Christ. The Pharisees and Sadducees accused him of having meals with harlots, with poor people, with, sinners and so on. Who are we if we are really following in the steps of Jesus Christ, for those who are Christians? And I'm sure it will be there in Islam and in other religions. I know it is there in my African traditional indigenous religions, because most of them really do believe in that philosophy that you talked about, that John Beatty, my former professor at Mucere, talked about. I am because you are, and since you are, therefore I am. So my duty here is to affirm my humanity, fight for it, but also affirm the humanity of others, and fight for whatever struggles they are engaged in, even when I may not be a part of what they are.
You must have had people say that, well, this is some concept that has been brought from the West to corrupt African morals.
That is so false. There has been a lot of research, a lot of findings, mostly from West Africa. Thank goodness that a lot of work has been done. And people are recognizing that these people were always there in some or many African communities, but they were forced to either subdue who they were, or in fact to deny who they were. And there were communities where they were punished, but there were other communities where they were allowed to stay on and coexist. What is most interesting too are some experiments that, especially some work that has been done by some Igbo scholars, that show evidence of women marrying women from way back in the centuries. Right now, it's because people are sort of coming out in the open and so on. So is it a Western concept? A lot of it is happening in the West, yes, but I think what is happening also makes, people in other parts of the world sort of feel they don't want to silence themselves any longer. They want to come out and speak about it. Before, they were silenced and didn't talk about it. So I think we are just seeing a different manifestation of things that have existed on the quiet that are coming out, more.
And there's been a view out there that a lot of people who are seen as being in the feminist movement sort of approach it from the point of view of isolating men, that men are the problem, let's get rid of them or something, that it is an either-or situation. And that poem seems to say something different. That's not a conventional view that a lot of people think the feminism movement is about.
Yes, and thank you for highlighting that, because it's a poem that I'm very fond of. And also you are giving me space to also say that as a creative thinker, composer, and writer, and I want to honor here the fact that I also operate in the orature tradition, yes, as well as the written tradition, that it is, for me, it is very, very important to use my art to theorize. And to be a feminist is, you're right, I'm theorizing on feminism. And what I'm saying there is that we need, if I give a definition of feminism that is very close to the one by Rhoda Reddock, the Trinidadian scholar and sister of mine, that I talked about, I see feminism as understanding and awareness of women's oppression that is based on gender and sexism. Secondly, I see that as something that can exist among males and females. Thirdly, because patriarchy is one of the biggest problems with, oppressing women, and because it favors the males, they have been the beneficiaries, and therefore very often they act as the guardians of the whole thing. But we need to see beyond those guardians to look at the system itself and the institution of patriarchy. Number 4, that in our socialization, whether male or female, many of them have been socialized to understand and accept patriarchal ideas. This is why sometimes you see women voting for a man and sort of feeling a woman should not be competing for the same.
Vote for a woman.
Or saying, exactly. As some of them are doing, by the way, in the States today about Hillary Clinton. In any case, my argument is we need to focus on the institutions and the structures and the systems that create oppression for women. And to understand that that oppression for women also is oppression that goes, to become oppression for society. Therefore, my argument is both men and women need to be conscientized in order now, having recognized oppression, to move to the next phase, to act on it in order to change and create a space of dialogue for both, sexes. And men can do it, women can do it. If we think society thinks it's a women's struggle only, it's going to be very, very sad. We need both men and women, but we need women to steer it because they are the direct objects and subjects of, this suffering. But I know a lot of men who are wonderful feminists, colleagues of mine that
Robert Kikemboi and